Hey crafters and DIYers, today I want to show you the Rhinestone Wreath earring kit, which is a kit with a base of laser cut 1/16 basswood plywood. It comes with a selection of rhinestones, and I put in 3 of every color just in case you happen to drop one on the floor that hopefully you don't need to immediately go scurrying for another one because you'll have extras. And then it comes with the earring findings and jump rings that you're going to need to complete your kit. In the kit, besides those materials, you'll also find the glue that you need, a tip that helps with the more precise application of glue, and then a little wax crayon that's going to help you pick up your rhinestones. At the bottom, then you'll also find a little bit of 400 grit sandpaper. I put it in plastic so that we don't scratch anything up inside. And then at the top, you'll also have really brief instructions. So a picture of the final product, the materials you should find inside, and please let me know if any of those materials aren't in your kit. Some really brief, quick start instructions for those of you who are either very experienced crafters or just want to jump in and figure it out on your own. A thank you for me, because I really do appreciate your supporting my business and my art. A QR code for some detailed video instructions, which hopefully is where you found this video. A mini color palette testing coloring space. Now this is much smaller than the actual full size, but hopefully what it will help you do is figure out how you want to assort your colors. If you want to do a rainbow gradient, or if you want to do complementary colors or contrasting colors. It's kind of up to you. And it also, although again this is very small, it will help you kind of practice precise application of paint, whether you're using a Posca marker or if you're going to be using a paintbrush. This mini version will definitely help you with your precise paint application practice. And you can figure out what color, besides your gemstones, you want the outside wood to be. So here on the wood blank, it'll be this unengraved portion that you'll paint if you want to. In this kit, you'll have some tips. So on my samples here, you'll see I use metallic paint on one and white paint on another. Sorry about that. The metallic paint markers that I use just happen to be Let's Resin chrome markers. I think that there are a ton of different brands out there that sell the exact same thing. So while I've only experimented with the Let's Resin brand, I would not hesitate to try other brands because they're probably very similar. So I've got that tip on there about the paint that I use. Now, although I do tend to use paint markers, so again, the Posca markers, and then on my website, I also have some brush tip acrylic paint brush markers that are pretty affordable. And what I like about these is that these have extremely fine tips, and as you can see here on my color samples, these are pretty opaque colors, so it shouldn't require more than 1 or 2 coats to get the kind of color coverage that you're looking for. So again, you can find those on in my Etsy store if you didn't already purchase some. Now, even though I like using acrylic paint markers because they have good color saturation, because they have really fine points, Again, here with my Posca marker, I use the 0.7 millimeter bullet shaped. It's got little pointy tip. That makes it easier for me. I don't have to do the cleanup that I'd have to do if I were using a brush. But if you're very crafty, you already have a ton of acrylic or gouache paints around your house, I would not hesitate to use those on this project. And in the mailed package, this may not be the exact brush that you got, but I hopefully will have enclosed a brush unless you requested that I didn't, so that you can get started right away with the colors you have, or some of the colors that I have listed in my shop that I've included with the kit. At the bottom is just a copyright notice. I think a lot of you crafters already know that once a designer starts to get popular, there are foreign actors typically who like to capitalize on the popularity of a design that's already out there, and they mass produce it in a way that the original designer doesn't benefit from. And so this is just my copyright notice saying, if you're one of those foreign agents, don't do that, because we see you. But again, what I like to make clear here is if you're just making these for yourself or as a gift for somebody, you totally don't need to worry about the copyright. So for those of you who might be buying the kits to sell because you just have a really fabulous idea about how to decorate these, go ahead, feel free to sell them. Just credit me as the designer. If you want to teach this kit, you like the idea of having a ready-made kit ready to go, but you want to teach your really cool way of finishing them, you can absolutely teach them, but please do buy the kits from me. And then the rest down here is basically just saying, please don't sell, like don't copy this and say, hey, I can laser cut my own. Please don't do that. Because I do spend a lot of time designing these and putting these kits together so that you guys can do this at home and have everything you need. Okay, so step one. Again, for these quick start instructions, step one is sand and paint your laser cut wood parts. Okay, so our laser cut wood parts. Now you can probably see, although you'll be able to see in person much better than you'll see in this video, is that the wood is already fairly smooth on its own. The laser does a good job of cutting the edges and doesn't leave any rough parts. But what I wanted to show you here, and I don't know if you can see the difference. One of these I've sanded beforehand and one of these I haven't. So this is the one that I painted without sanding. And you can see the grain, maybe more than you would like. And because of the ridges in the wood, there's a different amount of color absorption on the wood than you see in a piece that has been lightly sanded. And two, you might be one of those people who don't like these dark edges. So again, with that 400 grit sandpaper, if you want to, you just use a little bit of elbow grease and sand those edges away if you want. On this particular piece, it's a little bit harder, but you can see it is possible to remove it. And then the back, even though I've only included, in this one, enough rhinestones to finish, well, technically 3 of these. You won't have enough rhinestones unless you arrange it with me before you purchase it to also put rhinestones in the back. So you have to think about whether you want to carry over the color you use on the edges on the front, or if you want to do something really crazy and wild on the back, including designs or painting your own little dots, reflecting the colors of the rhinestones on the front. Again, you don't have to be plain about the way that you treat the back, but you'll have to give some thought to what you want to do on the back. So I am just going to give a quick light sand on the front. And then you are going to want to wipe away. So wipe away the dust so that the dust doesn't get into the tip of your markers. And you could blow it away, but obviously that super fine wood particles, you don't actually really want to be breathing that. So I really do recommend using a damp cloth to minimize the amount of wood particles you've got floating in your environment. I'm just going to wipe that off here. Okay. So we've sanded. I'm not really going to worry about the back. I'm probably just going to color those one single color, but I don't mind that slightly textured look that you can get from an unsanded back. Okay, so I am going to do a metallic coat. I've already primed my tip, but if you've got a brand new tip, you're going to have to depress it until the ink starts to flow, and sometimes just shaking it will reactivate that ink. And the reason that we want to do the painting before we put on the rhinestones, it might be obvious, but I don't want to get paint on my rhinestones. I want my rhinestones to stay the color that they are. Now the place where the rhinestones are going to go has been engraved. I don't know if you can kind of see. There's almost a 3D effect of the way that the laser is cut into the wood. That allows that glue to really kind of penetrate and hold on to the wood as it takes on the rhinestone. So because there is sort of a 3D effect, it is fairly easy to avoid getting too much paint in that area. I feel better about the adherence of the rhinestones when I'm gluing onto an unpainted surface. So I do try not to get too much paint into the area where I'm going to be gluing those rhinestones. But again, because it's 3D, here you can kind of see. Even when I'm trying, the paint is sinking in. So you don't need to be super careful. Like here when I'm trying to get color in between, like I'm not going to worry if I get a little bit. Because that glue, even on this one where I've gotten a lot of paint, the glue is still going to sink in and hold those rhinestones. That said, these areas where the laser has cut in are very delicate. So if you are going and painting those, you do kind of risk breaking them. Which for no other reason will make that one particular rhinestone where you've damaged the engraved area, that will sit lower than the others. And so you could potentially notice. Okay, so now I've finished painting the surface. It may look fine to you. I personally like to try and get it a little bit shinier, which means that I'm going to want to try and put on now another coat. It's the concept of priming. When wood is bare, when it's sort of naked wood, you're never 100% sure how it's going to accept the paint. And that primer layer, whether you're using a white layer or a colored layer, is going to help seal the wood so that subsequent layers of paint have a more predictable appearance. And I'm not sure if you can see this in the video or not, but it is taking longer for the paint to soak in, and it is staying shinier than that first layer that I applied. And although this is much more obvious with a metallic paint, even with a colored paint, you'll be able to tell the difference in the shininess or the mateness of the layer. It'll be a lot less consistent in that first layer than it will in second or third layers. Okay, so there's my first one. Here, I'll just show you the back of the second one. I don't need to show you how I'm going to make both because it'll be the same for the most part. The only difference between my two earrings is going to be the order that I apply the rhinestones, because I don't want them to be exact copies of each other. I want them to be mirrored so that the way that my left earring looks will mirror the earring on the right, and it won't be identical. And what that really means is it will look like you thought about, hey, I want each side to reflect what the other looks like. So it makes it look more deliberate. It makes it look more professional if you take the time to mirror those colors. And again, here's where I've only have one layer. Here I'm adding my second layer. In some cases, my third layer. And as you see, I'm not really waiting. Like, I'm not letting it sit to dry for 5 minutes. It's kind of like if you go to get your nails done. Once the technician gets done running through them, she just runs back and starts all over again. But you can see there's a lot more light reflecting here on the right side than the left side. So I would take the time to do the second coat. But other than that, you can kind of see I'm not being super careful. I'm just using circles, and you may be much more professional in the way that you apply your paint, and I really just encourage you to use whatever method makes you happiest with the way the final product looks. Okay. So you can see I'm not I don't have a manicure. I don't worry about getting paint on me. I really just like getting very involved in the process. But that's my style. It doesn't have to be yours. Okay, so if we look at our quick start instructions again, we have removed the dust. We've sanded. We are now painting. I don't give you a lot of instructions here on the painting, but here I will show you for a 12 marker acrylic brush set. So these are the markers that I have in my Etsy store. These are the color swatches, and my swatch, I'm painting on the exact same kind of wood that I use to make the earrings. So that's here probably 4 layers of paint. Just because it wasn't super neat, I needed to cover up some of the white again. And then if you like Posca markers, and I'll show you your Posca markers. These are one of the more professional brands of markers. And what makes, say, Posca markers or Montana markers stand out compared to the more generic acrylic brush markers is that they have more opaque, more vibrant pigments. They have more reliable mechanic actions in the pens, because again, the way that the pens work is that there's a reservoir of paint, and then there is, here I can even possibly show you. No, maybe not. There's a spring mechanism inside that while the marker is just sitting, it's plugging the reservoir so that this paint isn't constantly pouring forward to the tip. And then the tip is made out of hollow plastic, so it's like a fountain pen, it stores a certain amount of paint in the tip so that you have enough to kind of draw or keep painting. But once it starts getting harder and harder to apply a nice layer of paint, you do depress the tip down. In the down, I just wanted to show you the way it looked, but you do kind of depress it down using gravity, and the paint then will flow again. Posca markers, they aren't advertised as being refillable, but there are not a million, I shouldn't exaggerate, but there are many videos online to show you how to unscrew the tip, remove the inner mechanics, and refill it with either an airbrush paint or a purpose-made. Like here, Montana does actually sell refill bottles. So this is their Shock White acrylic, and it's a watery acrylic paint. So if you applied airbrush thinner to any acrylic paint you have in a tube or in a bottle around your house, you could actually make your own custom acrylic paint marker colors. You just have to make sure that they're watered down enough. And in fact, some people just use water. But that's for another video. Okay, so now that we've got these painted, in your kit, again, you'll have a little bit of this B700 glue, which is the generic version of, was it the E6000 glue? It's a rubberized glue that allows you to bond lots of different surfaces together. So that's why we're using this, since we're connecting a plastic painted, when I say painted, I mean the silver portion, the mirrored portion, is just a superficial layer. It's heat bonded to the acrylic, but it's not necessarily the strongest bond in the history of the world. So we really do want to use a glue that's going to facilitate these multiple different materials sticking together for a long period of time. So here we'll open our little rhinestone package. And again, since you have 2 earrings, you need 2 of every color, and only because I have lost little rhinestones as I've put my own sets together, I give you 3 of each, just to help make sure that you're going to have what you need to finish the project. I'm going to try and be a little bit, oh, see, I already lost one. Yep. And that's why I give you extras. Okay. So this little wax crayon that I've included here, I've got a naked version. You just have to apply really light pressure. And then here, I like flipping them over to see what I've got. So once you touch it, again, that's pretty light pressure, you put it down. The glue, once you apply the glue to the laser cut painted base, it should just stick on its own and you can just kind of pull the wax away. But if not, just kind of roll it off. Okay. Here I've got my planetary earring kit, which I'll do another video on later. Okay, so I'm going to pull out 1 of every color that I'm going to use. And I do like the rainbow effect, but here I might be a little crazy and just do kind of a random rainbow, because those look cool too. My goodness. Some of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, she just got wax on the back. And I did. I did get a little bit of wax on the back. That could potentially interfere with the adhesion. So it is smart to avoid getting wax on the back. That said, you can see it's less than 25% of the back. And so I am not worried for my own part about whether or not that rhinestone will stay adhered to the base. I know that it will. But if you are worried about your own, especially if you're making these for somebody else and you've never done this before, do go ahead and listen to that voice of caution in your head and just, like, if they're upside down, don't use your wax pencil to pick those up if you're worried. You can use a dry brush to kind of flick them. That works better, in fact. Or just use your fingers to pick them up. Okay. So there are 10 circles on our design. I'm not touching the base because of what we were just talking about. Here, I'll use my brush. So starting from the hanging hole, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're going to need 10 colors. I still need a yellow, I can see. I like to use the mnemonic Roy G. Biv. I think a lot of you have probably learned that. So ROYG. I need another blue. B. So a couple blues, a purple, so indigo, and a magenta. So here we have our 10 colors. Here, I don't know if you can see this. There's a little bit of wax on there. That wax is a hard wax. So you can just rub it off and that will come off. Okay. One of the main things that I've learned while putting these together is that because this glue does have a smell, and if you are sensitive to glue smells, I would definitely do this outside or somewhere where you have good airflow to help carry those fumes away. Potentially using a respirator if you're very sensitive to those kinds of chemical smells. But for me and my own part, it doesn't bother me enough where I need that. But just be aware that this does have a petroleum scent that may, for some of you, be unpleasant. Because of the volatile chemicals, and I say volatile chemicals sort of in a non-professional, I don't know exactly what this is made out of, but it is meant to be tack hardened within about 10 minutes. So those chemicals do evaporate fairly quickly. So you don't want to put glue on all 10 spots and then go through and put them in, because by the time you get to stones 4, 5, 6, you'll need to apply more glue to get it to stick. So I really advise, if you don't just want to do one at a time, don't do more than 2 at a time. So here you can see I'm going to, again, because we talked about how we've engraved into the wood, there is a certain amount of glue that's going to sink down, and that's what we want. So I do put a little bubble. Here, let's see if we can kind of get I've put a little bubble of glue on there to make sure that even if a little bit does sink down, there, yeah. I like blue, and then I like orange next to blue. So as you can see, I don't have to work very hard to get those rhinestones to stick, and you kind of see that's stuck pretty well already. Okay. So even if you do get a tiny bit of wax on those rhinestones, don't worry about it right now. You can see I still have, it's still wet enough where I can shift the rhinestones around in to perfectly cover the engraved portions. Okay. So my little domes of glue, and then I close up my glue so that the tip doesn't dry out. That's a best practice. Just don't let those dry up on you. Let's do a light green. I'm tempted to kind of put all the bright colors all in a row because I really like that, but then I would be stuck with like all of these colors on the other side, which might be a little bit boring. So I'm gonna put light green here. Okay, there. And now I'm gonna do my magenta. So give it a second. If you do have a little bit of glue that leaks out and you're worried about that, just use the edge of your sandpaper to scoop that out of the way a little bit. It does dry clear, and so it won't be a huge deal if you've got glue on the edges. But if that bothers you, go ahead and use your sandpaper to remove it. And again, as you're noticing, I'm just kind of doing two spots at a time, doing my little dome of glue, closing my glue, picking up my wax crayon. Now I want my little teal. Give it a second. All right. Maybe now my dark. Let's do purple. Okay. Grab the glue, get my next two spaces ready. Okay. Close the glue, wax crayon. Okay, so I'm kind of doing lighter color, brighter color, lighter color, brighter color. Let's do a lighter color. A brighter color. Yeah, I do want that one there. I was debating whether I wanted the bright green here or if I wanted the bright green here. But because we're doing random, I didn't want to think too much about it. So I kind of went with my gut. Now I've used this particular glue tube on several projects already, so this will last you a while. But because I've used it for a while, it does kind of look like there's some air in there that wasn't previously in there. You just have to be a little bit more patient. Okay, so I would rather have this light blue next to the dark blue. I think that the dark green next to the dark blue is going to be a little bit darker than I want. All right. So now I don't know if you remember me telling you before, but again, this will take about 10 minutes to really set. So you do have time, like if anything is not covering the base the way that you would like, you can still shift it around. If you're worried about them not being pressed down firmly enough, go ahead, use your paintbrush to kind of just make sure that they're kind of pressed down in a way that makes you feel good. Although to be totally honest, I don't normally do this. I find that by using the wax crayon, if I can, again, pick up the whole piece, I feel like that has bonded really well. Again, because it is a rubberized glue, you do want some excess glue underneath to really form a nice bond between the wood and the acrylic rhinestone. So you kind of don't want to minimize your glue use. You kind of need a noticeable volume of glue there to make sure that you're really bonding those. Okay, so now if I had painted my second one, which obviously you can tell that I didn't. Oh, and here we can look. So you can tell I do. I still have 2 of the magenta left. I still have 2 of the dark green left. I still have 2 of the orange left. So there are plenty of extras there. But blue, blue is hiding. I'm guessing there. So then on my other one, I would kind of go in the opposite direction. So since we have blue here on the right-hand side of the earring hole, then on my other one, assuming again you don't want to do a totally random second one, which is totally your prerogative. If you want to mirror this version, then on the left-hand side, we're going to put our blue, and then we're going to put our orange. And again, you can see that the adhesive really does help a lot, because here without the adhesive, it's hard to get, excuse me, my wax pencil away. But you can see here, so this is a mirror image, so blue to blue, orange to orange, green to green. So we're not matching this clockwise, we're going to go counterclockwise on the second one. Okay. So on our quick start instructions, our third step then is using jewelry pliers attach the jump rings and earring findings. So the pliers, or first I should say that the findings that we're using, here, get some out for you to see. So these small jump rings have a 2 millimeter inner diameter, and these slightly bigger ones have a 3 millimeter inner diameter. So they're not big jump rings. And I do that because I want the wood itself to stand out and not the jump ring. And so it's a part of my design. The design ideals behind this choice is that the 2 millimeter inner diameter jump ring is big enough to fit into the holes that I design in the cut, and then it's big enough to then allow this, it's 20 gauge sterling coated copper wire. So the 2 millimeter inside diameter, again, those are those smaller ones that connect to the wood itself, are big enough to connect to the wood and then allow enough room for another jump ring to fit in without being a huge visual part of the design. Like I don't want the jump rings to be the main feature of the earring. So in order to facilitate the use of such small jump rings, I do use pretty finely tipped, very finely tipped pliers. And the ones that I use and like the best are Xuron, Xuron brand. Depending on where you get them, they cost between $15 and $20 a plier. There are kind of generic versions that you can get out there for maybe $6 or $7 each, but I haven't tried any of those, so I'm not sure. So this particular one, my blue one, that's like a very mini flat nose plier. Here you can see that this is their tweezer nose $450. This is probably the pair of pliers I use the most in all of my jewelry making, so I do highly recommend this particular one. This other one, this green one, is actually also designed to help close crimp beads, so it is a multifunctional plier. Whoa. And I'm just moving the guards to kind of show you. They do imprint what it is. So this is the 494 4-in-1 crimper plier. But the reason I like it is because it has such a fine tip. And they do use hardened steel, so these are very durable. And you can kind of tell by some of the rust and the paint here that I've been using these a long while. And they still have good, hinges. There's a little bit of, it's a spring action plier. So I love these. But here now I'm going to get a tiny little jump ring. Oh, and I've also included extras of these because I do know that these get lost. If you don't have these round pliers, just a normal chain nose plier. So a chain nose plier is, here, it's got a slightly rounded pointed tip. And then what sets jewelry pliers apart from normal pliers is that the inside jaw, well, I'm not showing that very well, but the inside jaw is perfectly flat so that you don't use the serrated teeth to accidentally bite into the metal. Not only does it not look good, but it can harm the structural integrity of the jump ring. Now, jump rings are deceptively complex in that they have a sort of spring function because of their rounded shape, which means that when you open a jump ring, don't open it like a book. And here I'm going to show you, just do not ever open it. Do not ever open it like this, like pulling it apart, because what it does is it weakens this back part of the jump ring. And when you have to push it back together to close this gap, that movement of the wire weakens this point and makes it more likely that it's going to come apart. What you'd want to do instead, so again, I'm just trying to line up this gap so that this gap is on top. You want to use a twisting action. So you can see the jump rings are formed by wrapping a coil of metal and then using a saw to cut that coil. So jump rings automatically come offset. The two ends are going to be offset. And so what we're going to do is basically we're going to magnify that offset. Now, if you are a thinker, you'll say, well, you had to move metal to do that as well. And you're right, I did. But because I twisted the metal rather than pulling the metal, it doesn't create the same kind of weak spot interfering with kind of the spring action of a jump ring. And so even though technically, yes, I did have to quote unquote weaken the metal a little bit, it's work fatigue is basically what the term is. And what work fatigue does is it results in a slight increase in brittleness of the metal. But the direction that work hardening occurs does matter. Okay, so you can see that it's a fairly tight fit here. I'm going to make sure I've got a good... And the laser cut wood is 1/16 inch thick, which is basically 1.5 inches thick. And because this is a 2 millimeter diameter, inner diameter jump ring, it is, like we just talked about, a very tight fit. So you might need to twist it a little bit. And what that's doing is it's actually compressing some of the wood particles just to help accommodate the curve of the jump ring. So now that I've got that through, I'm going to grab the other side. And now I'm going to twist back. And I'm also pushing just to make sure that gap gets closed. Because if you've ever worn jewelry with a slightly open jump ring before, you will know it catches hair and it hurts. So you definitely don't want to get hair caught in those jump rings if at all possible. So we're just going to close that up. Okay. So at this point, this particular kit is actually designed to work without jump rings, but I think that covering how to use jump rings is so important that I did want to cover that. And I think that it's also important to remember that you can always be creative, that you don't have to use these pinch bails if you don't want to. And so just like with a jump ring, all you have to do is slightly twist to open up the loop at the end of the earring finding. And we can slide in our jump ring. Now, in this particular case, this would result in a sideways hanging earring, so we would want to use a bigger earring then, just to make sure that when we put in our earring finding, when we put in our earring finding, since it's going to be hanging through our ear like this, we want the earring to be facing out. Oh, and you can see the glue shifted. And so this would be a good time to mention that we probably want to wait that full 10 minutes to let the glue set before doing the findings. But what I can tell you, I can tell by the amount of friction I'm feeling as I'm trying to reset this gem that I do still have plenty of adhesive. This didn't come loose because of too little adhesive. I was just being too rough. But again, better to avoid that by giving the full 10 minutes of letting the glue set. And the more time, the better. This glue should fully cure in 24 hours. So if you wanted to be 100% safe, then you could wait till the next day to come and finish doing the findings. So again, we're using a twisting action on the jump rings. As we twist back, we slightly push. And then we can attach. And then just make sure that you know, yeah, the hook has to go back because it's going to go through your ear. But if you kind of get to chatting with somebody, or you get distracted, or if you're daydreaming and happen to put the earring finding in the wrong way the first time, it's not hard to fix. Okay. But if you decide that you do want to use this is a pinch here. This is called a pinch bail. If you want to use that, all you have to do is slip one in the hole, use your pliers to gently bring the other one down. So I've kind of closed that quite a bit. And now, as the name implies, we are going to pinch. And what we're doing is we're really, there we go. We're compressing the metal up by the loop so that the tension, the spring action in those metal molecules is what holds that finding tight. So this is the intended use of the findings in the kit. But again, just to show you that there are other ways to do it as well. And again, to revisit, so these are the samples that I've done. You could also do a post earring version. So here, just to show you. And this one, you would glue an earring post to the back. And these are all different options that you can choose in the store when we're putting kits together, if you want to customize your kit. And this earring is just with the pinch bail as it was in the kit. Just to show you guys kind of the difference, these are Aurora Borealis, or AB rainbow cabochons. These are AB jelly, which means that there's translucent rather than transparent. And these are just straight, clear colored rainbow. So there are 3 different kinds of rhinestone colors, again, that you can choose if you decide that you want to customize the kit in our shop. If you have any questions, please message me at Etsy. Otherwise, look for future videos while I put together other kits and maybe cover some other tips that I don't cover here. Thank you guys. Bye.